lane fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, nah, likely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running right, see. And I ain't playing games, I create my own lane. Making pleasure out of pain, turning losses into...
I need to add myself into the stream, huh? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to State of the Steelers. Welcome to the show. Today, we're talking the pregame show. We're talking the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the New York Jets. The matchup coming up tomorrow. Both teams are 1-2, looking to go back to make it back up to 500. I hope everybody's having a great time. Let me know if you guys can hear me good on the live chat. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, guys, we're giving away 2 tickets to the Steelers versus Las Vegas Raiders on December 24th. Being a subscriber is the first step. Hit that subscribe button. So I'll say hello to a few of the guys and gals in the live chat already. We have Jaredevil. How's it going, buddy? Good morning, everyone. Steelers fan. Steeler Lee. Brian Brown, how's it going? Aleta Flores, good morning. Let's see. Thoughts on what Najee said about fans and media towards the team. You know, and for those that didn't understand, he kind of said that the fans and the media are somewhat trying to divide the team up or whatnot. I kind of called this out early in the season when so I write for Behind the Steel. I do write for Behind the Steel Curtain. I also have a Saturday only podcast that's audio that comes out on Apple, Spotify, the whole 9 yards. Behind the Steel Curtain, just search up State of the Steelers. But about maybe a month right before the season started, I wrote an article for Behind the Steel Curtain titled, "Are the Pittsburgh Steelers setting up Mr. Trubisky for failure?" And the reason I put that in there was that I felt that by the Steelers not announcing him the starter earlier, that it kind of overinflated the hope for the Black and Gold Nation that there's a possibility that Kenny Pickett was going to be the quarterback. Now, I indicated that, what do you call it? If the Pittsburgh Steelers would have, or I wrote down that the Steelers would have indicated that Mitch was the starting quarterback, the fans and everybody would have fallen behind him. It was very similar to like when he was first signed up as a free agent. I don't think anybody was too high on Mitch Trubisky prior to free agency and the Steelers acquiring him. I think that everybody thought that he was probably one of the best quarterbacks going into free agency, but that the free agency quarterback group wasn't that, high up there. And so, it took some time for some of the fans to kind of come around to Mitch Trubisky. And once the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett, it's like, whoa, all the hype went that direction. And rightfully so. He's potentially the new franchise guy and a guy that is, a guy that is going to be the guy. He's the potential heir apparent. However, all the hype and everything went that way. And then when Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers refused to announce a starter so early, I think it kind of gave that hope. And when the Steelers announced it was going to be Mr. Trubisky, I think that was a big deflation, or however you want to. Everybody just felt deflated by the announcement. I know I did. I was going into it saying, you know what, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Mr. Trubisky. But in every conversation that I had with you guys or with myself or other Steeler fans, I always talk myself into, well, maybe it is Kenny Pickett. And, it was pretty deflating once that news came out. Now, I indicated that if Mitch struggles early, or I wrote down in my article, if Mitch struggles early, you're going to get the Kenny chance and the booze. But I also put on there, because of what's going on in the media, because the media was already making it this big old thing, Kenny versus Mitch. It was a huge thing going throughout the offseason and up to the regular season as far as who should be the quarterback. That I felt if Mitch struggled early, then that question was going to come out from the media to the players. Hey, do you feel confident in your quarterback? Do you feel this? Do you feel that? Would you like to see Kenny Pickett in there? Things of that nature, and that could cause a divide amongst the team. I felt that this was probably not handled the best, and I get it. Going in against the Cincinnati Bengals, you want to have that competitive edge. You want to go in there and make the Cincinnati Bengals prepare for 2 quarterbacks. However, outside of what the Steelers were saying, their actions were indicating that it was going to be Mr. Trubisky this whole time. And so, with that being said, um, you know, I don't think that the Cincinnati Bengals were too surprised when it was Mr. Trubisky. But, winning cures everything. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers can get back on the winning track, can take care of business this week, that noise, so to speak, that he was talking about, or Coach Tomlin and the rest of the team were talking about kind of, tuning out, will start to come down. And so, but at the end of the day, the fans want the Steelers to win, just like Brian Brown said. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we're the fans. We want them to win, want to have the best shot. And, at the end of the day, if they were executing properly, putting up points, maintaining the ball in time of possession, and them themselves not pointing the fingers, whether it's at Matt Canada or whoever, then these questions and these problems wouldn't come up, so to speak. But winning cures everything. Problems are going to be coming through when you're losing. And when you lose two games that, you probably could have, should have won, looking into the season prior to the season starting, you're looking at a Patriots team that, Mac Jones was kind of iffy. And then, Deshaun Watsonless Cleveland Browns compared to what the Pittsburgh Steelers have in the next few games. That was going to be the easier portion of your schedule. And so when you lose those portions of your schedule, the questions and stuff are going to arise. But great question, great comment. Thanks for the comment there, Steeler Lee. Let's see. Brian Brown said that, we just want the Steelers to win. And then he goes, I know as a Steelers fan, I don't want the team divided. We want the team to win. I personally don't care if the defense does the scoring or if the Steelers win 2-0. I could care less as long as we win 100. Yes, sir. That's exactly true. I think that's the goal at every game. The Pittsburgh Steelers need to win. But there's a cost to each win. You look at, or a cost in the way that they're playing, so to speak. You look at the first game, it came with a win, came at a cost of the reigning defensive player of the year. And the reason, in my opinion, is because the offense couldn't maintain the ball. And that's not a formula for long-term success. And so, the Steelers offense has surely struggled early, but I do think that they're getting a little bit better. I put out a video yesterday on the upside of Mr. Trubisky. And I'll be honest with you, I got a little bit of hate across the board. But when you look at the video and you look at the plays that he's made, it comes down to me as far as execution and it's like inopportune mistakes at the wrong times. And it's not just on Mr. Trubisky. You have Matt Canada, who's calling some questionable plays every now and then, getting away from the run when it's working, especially in the, when the Steelers are up in the second half, come against the Cleveland Browns, even though it was by one, kind of abandoning the run at that point was probably not the best idea. And then you have sometimes Mr. Trubisky misses some throws, or he throws it over the wide receiver in an uncatchable position. And then you have times where the receivers are dropping the ball. There's miscommunication. And then there's some unfortunate penalties that kill drives. And it's not like one of those things is happening, or all those things are happening on one play or drive that killed one drive. It's like one of those things happens on every drive, and it kills every drive. And it happens early in the drive, so the drive isn't sustainable. And so time of possession gets out of control, and it just becomes a snowball that grows, so to speak. But, I've seen less than that in the last game. And then, and I feel that the Steelers are playing better offensively. I just hope it's not too late. There's been a lot of injuries right now. Akil Witherspoon is going to be out with a hamstring injury. And recently, here in the later part of the week, Cam Sutton was put on the injury report with a groin. And so, I'm actually probably, I want to say happy. I'd say I would prefer to have played or to play Zach Wilson in this game because of that. Joe Flacco has a strong arm. He's been in Heinz Field, or Acrisure. I'm sorry, that's the first time I messed that up. He's been in Acrisure Stadium. He knows the gravity of the way the stadium works and the wind and the whole 9 yards. And so he's won games in Acrisure in the past. With the issues that we have at our outside cornerback position, I'd prefer a Zach Wilson who struggled last year, hasn't participated much in training camp up to this, or hasn't participated at all up to this point. Had one game in preseason where I believe it was the first drive where he injured his knee. And so, he's coming in. The field's probably not going to be the best tonight. Pitt Panthers have a game in Acrisure Stadium. It's supposed to be raining. It's a night game. Tomorrow morning it's supposed to be raining. So I anticipate this being a muddy field. The defensive backs are going to be a little bit compromised when you have Cam Sutton with a groin and Akila Witherspoon out with a hamstring. And so Minka Fitzpatrick, he cleared protocol. He cleared the concussion protocol, so he'll be back out there. Now, the best friend of the defensive back is going to be a pass rusher, or pass rush. So Alex Highsmith versus Connor McDermott, the third string career back at left tackle, blocking Zach Wilson's blind side, is going to be a key matchup in this game, in my opinion. If Alex Highsmith can cause havoc back there and create a lot of pressure, that's gonna help our defensive backs who are a little bit injured right now. And so, Connor McDermott, he's a third stringer. In fact, both of the tackles for the New York Jets have been plagued with injuries. The Jets have placed, I think, George Fant was his name. Yeah, George Fant. He was the most recent tackle to be placed on IR. He's the third offensive tackle for the New York Jets to be placed on IR. So Malik Reed is going to have to step up in this game, and so is and I think Alex Highsmith is going to have a huge game, and the Steelers are definitely going to need to have that if they're going to want to have some kind of success on offense. The Jets running backs have a pretty good run per carry. They have to kind of get away from the run because they've fallen behind so much. So the Steelers are going to have to do the same thing. This cannot be a game where it's a close one trying to finish it out in the end, because this is a team that very much well could beat us on the run. This is a team that you want to make them one-dimensional. You want to make them have to pass the ball, especially with the injuries and especially with the inexperience right now of Zach Wilson this year, coming back on in a rough area on the road against a strong Steelers defense. This is a good matchup for the defense, and if the Steelers can exploit that offensive line and cause havoc and create pressures back there for Zach Wilson, I see the Steelers, holding this team down to maybe just a couple, a few field goals. I don't think this team can get in the end zone. But if for whatever reason, maybe the mud or whatever the case may be, if the defense can't get home on the front line and they can't get to Zach Wilson, it can be a long day because these defensive backs are hurting. They're hurting very much. But yeah, I'm going to take some of your comments and questions, guys. This is the Q&A. Let me know what comments and questions you guys have. Brian Brown says, do you know the Steelers have scored 4 total first quarter touchdowns the whole time Matt Canada has been OC? That does not surprise me. I didn't know that stat. However, that does not surprise me when it comes to that. But the Steelers have been playing poor in the first quarter and the first half of games for a while, even prior to Canada. But what that kind of leads me to believe is that the script that is going down to begin the games is probably not the best. And that's very concerning towards when you have an offensive coordinator, because the script that you have goes based on the tendencies and everything that you have scouted on the opposing team. And these are the best set of plays that you feel that are going to work the best. Now, of course, there's some changes and the teams will do some things that are different and try to throw out looks that, the opposition hasn't seen before. But to only score 4 touchdowns in the first quarter, it's not surprising. The Steelers have been notoriously slow starting off the gate, going back to Randy Fichtner and Ben Roethlisberger. But yeah, no, man, it's poor. That is poor. Matt Canada is definitely on the hot seat. I think that his seat would be a lot warmer if this was still happening with Kenny Pickett in the game. He kind of has an excuse saying, hey, I got Mr. Trubisky. It's not like I have Ben Roethlisberger in his prime, running the offense. If we can change the names and the faces around to players that aren't, the Steelers, let's just say Eli Manning at the end of his career, he didn't look so sharp. It was time for him to go. And if the next person they brought in was Josh Rosen, Would you really put a lot of blame on the offensive coordinators if that was their two options, an old Eli Manning and a 4 or 5 year vet, Josh Rosen? It goes both ways, so to speak. And so, it's early on in the season, especially this season. I was looking at the schedule for last year, or the records from last year, and there were some teams there that were 3-0 that ended up pretty bad last season. In fact, tonight I'm going to bring that up in my podcast with Nathan Hines from In Hindsight and Mark Davison from Steelers Nation Australia. And we're also going to have David Engel from the Here We Go show as a special guest on the Unofficial Steelers podcast. It's a merry-go-round podcast that jumps from one channel to another. It's our gimmick, or our saying is, it's so unofficial it doesn't have a home. And so it was recently on my channel. It's going down to Mark, and then it'll go to Nathan's. But tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, it'll be on Steelers Nation Australia. We're going to be previewing this game as well and talking to more Steeler fans. So I highly encourage you guys to go out and check that out. Let's see what else we got. Lou Dutrick says, going to the game and taking our good juju with us. We can win with the solid offense and defensive performance. I agree, Lou. And I think the offense is coming along. They're coming along a little bit slowly, but when you look across the league, there are certain players and certain, like, for instance, you had Matthew Stafford struggling early, Russell Wilson struggling early. These are all teams that, might take some time sometimes to get going. The Steelers have been one of those teams notoriously to be doing that. They've struggled early for a while, whether it's early in the season or early in games. Let's see. Sierra Lee said, would it be a shock if Kenny sits the entire year? I think that outside of injury, that's the goal from Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin. I think that's what they want. They don't want to play him. Jake Glazer is a good friend of Mike Tomlin, and he indicated last season that that Mike Tomlin didn't want a rookie quarterback in. He didn't want to have to deal with that. And so there's been some reports that have come out that the Steelers want him to get a little bit bigger before they play him out there. He's a little bit on the smaller side as far as frame goes. All those things make sense. It's, if they don't have to rush him, why rush a rookie quarterback and shock his confidence, things of that nature. I get it. But, outside of injury, I think that's the game plan for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, is to sit Kenny Pickett the entire year. I don't think they plan to fail. Mike Tomlin has said this many times. They don't go into a season saying, all right, if this guy doesn't work out, we have this guy as a backup. Their plan is always the first guy that they put in is going to be the guy. He's going to be the starter. And if things don't work out, then they'll make moves instead of statements, as Mike Tomlin has stated before. However, I think that's the goal in this situation. But, if the offense doesn't do well, even if it's not Mr. Trubisky's fault, the responsibility and everything falls on the shoulders of the quarterback. So, even if, you have drop balls, you have penalties that are bringing you back, and it may not be Mitch's fault, putting in a new signal caller, getting a fresh, set of eyes out there, and maybe creating a spark could get the offense going. I mean, if you go back to 2003, and I know it's a different team, different players, different coach, but you had, a team that went 6-10 with Tommy Maddox. The following year, the Pittsburgh Steelers draft Ben Roethlisberger. The players that the Steelers got for that free agency and that draft, I think outside of Ben Roethlisberger, Max Starks was the only player that became a solid player for the Pittsburgh Steelers out of the 2004 draft. That team was relatively the same in 2004 as it was in 2003, except for the quarterback. And that quarterback had a spark, and he changed things around, and he got that team from 6-10 to 15-1 in AFC Championship appearance. And so, that, in my opinion, is very real. I mean, if you go back and you look at Ben Roethlisberger's performance as a passer in the first couple of games, and you put him up against, Tommy Maddox for what he did in 2002, Tommy looked like a better passer. He was more accurate. He was more decisive with his throws. He was more, he knew the offense better, and it was obvious. And the Steelers opened up the playbook for him. There was times in 2005 when Ben Roethlisberger went down and the Steelers brought in Tommy Maddox, and I felt like man, it felt like the Steelers were opening up the playbook more for Tommy Maddox than Ben Roethlisberger. And at that time, they were, because Ben didn't know the offense as well as Tommy did, and he wasn't as experienced. It didn't mean, though, that during certain times and when the stakes were up and pressure moments happened and you had to be clutch, that's where Ben Roethlisberger trumped Tommy Maddox completely. He was there. He was able to make the clutch plays and didn't change his the game didn't change him. The pressure moments, the pressure situations, downs, the stadiums that they were in, the opposition didn't change Ben Roethlisberger. And so that's what made him leagues above many of the other quarterbacks that have come through the NFL. Let's see. Good question, though. Good question. Brian Brown says, have you heard anything on Calvin Austin III? I have not. I honestly don't think, unless there is an injury on the wide receiver group, I don't think he's going to make an appearance this year as well. I mean, and I asked this question earlier in the offseason prior to Calvin Austin's injury to a lot of different folks, most of them from behind the steel curtain. I asked us, like, hey, if Calvin Austin's going to be seeing game time, who's coming off the field? You're not going to take Deontay Johnson, Claypool, or George Pickens off for him. Gunnar Olszewski, he's had that fumble against the Patriots, and I can say if that continues to happen, then yeah, that's probably one guy that you can take out. And the other guy that's been, getting a helmet throughout the entire time is Boykin. And Boykin has shown to be an amazing special teamer, especially down as the gunner. And so, Gunnar Olszewski, if he maybe puts the ball on the ground a couple more times, then I can see Calvin Austin coming back to the field. But, if that doesn't happen, I don't see there being a position for him. I mean, there's also another guy who has a helmet above him who's on the 53, who just hasn't got a helmet on game day, which is Sims. And so, I don't think we're going to see Calvin Austin this year. And it's unfortunate because he's got some really crazy speed. But he missed out on crucial developmental portion of the year when they're implementing their meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the offense, their bones, their what it is that they want to do, and then they add on to that. And so he missed that part, and it's a moving train that's going to be very difficult for a receiver who's projected to be maybe a fourth option, so to speak. So. I don't think he's going to make an appearance unless there's an injury or Gunnar Olszewski puts the ball on the ground. Let's see. Steelers fan says, I can't wait to see how the defense is going to play. I'm looking forward to it. I think that the Steelers do well against, younger quarterbacks. I think that Zach Wilson is a guy he's got a strong arm and he likes to use it. And he's going to try to fit some balls in areas that he may not need to, and that's gonna, I hope he tests Minka Fitzpatrick, because if he does, and that could lead for points for the Steelers on the defense. He's wildly, not rusty more than what I'm thinking. He hasn't played any of the games this year. He didn't play much of the preseason, and last year he wasn't the best either. And I think he plagued a little bit of injury as well. So it'll be interesting to see how the Pittsburgh Steelers attack this offense of the New York Jets. I expect them to run the ball quite a bit. And that's been a little bit of an Achilles heel for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Steelers have demoted Alu and promoted Martavius Adams to kind of stop the run there. And when he's been on the field, the run has gone down. I believe the average, run per carry is over 4 yards when Alu is on the field, and it's under 3 when Martavius Adams is on the field. And so that's a big difference. And, Alu, he's older. He's coming off of an ankle injury that was a season ender very early in the season last year. And so he's missed a lot of football as well. He's 35 years old. Alu and Chris Wormley were two guys that I saw coming into this season that could have been on the edge there or fighting for one spot. I thought the Steelers were going to keep 6 defensive linemen. They ended up keeping 7. I thought that if they were to keep 6, that Alu and Chris Wormley would be the guys fighting for that one spot. I still think that. I mean, when you look at, Alu has been moved around a little bit this year, and so is Chris Wormley. There's several times where, especially against the Cleveland Browns, where he's being thrown to the ground, ragdolled from one side to the next. It's not a good look. And Nick Chubb, I believe on the play where Nick Chubb ran down and tried to leap over Minka Fitzpatrick and need him in the head, which is the speculation as to where the concussion may have occurred or what ended up leading to the symptoms of concussion that put Minka in the concussion protocol. On that play, and I could be wrong, it could have been another one, but on that play, from what I remember, is Wormley's getting thrown out of the way. And so that's a concern. He's a little bit undersized, from my opinion, to be on the interior line. Chris Wormley, that is. And, I think that Martavius Adams, he's a former third-round pick. He played well last year when he came in for the nose tackle at the end of the season, really did help out the running game or the defensive run. And I think that, it's a good move. And I think the Steelers are going to, with the weather and the field and anticipating more running plays, the Steelers are going to try to make this a one-dimensional game where Zach Wilson's going to have to beat them. So I anticipate them stacking and loading the box as well. So it's going to be a good game. Garrett Wilson, the running back, he took a nasty hit last week, went out. I didn't think he was coming back in, came back in, though. He wasn't on the injury report, so he'll be good to go. Quincy Williams, their starting inside linebacker for the New York Jets, is also out of this game. And so, the offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers has been doing well. This could be a big Najee or Jalen Warren game if he can hold on to the ball. I think last game the Steelers kind of got away from the running game because of the fumble that Jalen Warren had. If he can hold on to the ball, I think this is going to be a solid game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see. Great comment. Steelers says, matchup I'm looking forward to see is Sauce versus Pickens. I would love to see that matchup if Mitch Trubisky would deliver the ball out there. That's one thing that I do have a huge, complaint about Mitch Trubisky is, well, I'm not sure if it's him or Matt Canada who's not designing the plays or the concepts to be thrown or even looked in the direction of George, but he's just being underutilized in my opinion. And he's coming open so much over the top. And, this is where, in my opinion, like a Mason Rudolph would have probably been the better option for George Pickens as a quarterback, because Mason Rudolph will throw it up there, throw it out there, and he can throw the ball pretty accurately down the field. And so, Mr. Trubisky, he's got some flashes. He's got some throws where he's throwing down the field and it's a dime on the money. Then he has some that's like 15 yards out of bounds. So, and it's just one of those things, man. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to, or the offense is going to design some concepts to get the ball into George's hands. And I think if they do, this could be a good game for George Pickens. He's open all the time, NFL open. I'm not going to say he's running naked down the field like Claypool was in the middle of the field when George Pickens had that crazy catch down the sideline, but he's running open quite a bit of the times. Good comment. Let's see. Brian Brown says, Matt Canada likes misdirection and gimmick plays. I thought Austin would be good for that. I agree. I do agree with you on that. I think that he's going to be the future for that. I just think that when it comes down to the timing of his injury and how long he's been out, and the players who's filled in have stepped up. I mean, when you look at who's been doing the misdirections or the jet sweeps, or who's been most, in my opinion, the best at it would be Claypool. He's more like he's a bigger receiver, which is crazy because he's a bigger receiver. You would think a smaller receiver, shifty and fast guy would be able to get those jet sweeps and those, reverses and play better with those types of offense. And yet Claypool's out there just dominating on that, having big runs. It's very difficult to tackle. It's like almost, like the Deebo Samuel of the 49ers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so, I think Claypool's done a fantastic job up to this point. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice to get him out there because of his speed, and it would be nice to get him into the open field. I just think that he's missed a lot of developmental football time. Great comment, though. I think the word is out on Minka. I doubt the Jets go near him. Then again, the Jets do have a young quarterback who's been out. Oh, yeah. No, the word's definitely out on Minka. But the thing is about Zach Wilson is he thinks that his arm is strong enough and talented enough to get it through anybody, which is why he's had a few interceptions in his career. And so, I think the Steelers also, he's inexperienced and he's young. If Minka can bait him, which I think he can, he's a very intelligent player. I think Nick Saban had said that he was probably the most smartest defensive players that he had coached and things of that nature, and really talked up Minka Fitzpatrick. He's a very smart player. He can bait Zach Wilson into thinking or getting him to get greedy, so to speak, and try to take a shot down the field, thinking that they're in one certain coverage or not, or another. I think he can bait him in and get a couple of picks, or at least one. I think he's going to have a big game if Zach Wilson goes towards his direction. I think that the injury report is out there. Cam Son has been dealing with a groin, so I wouldn't be surprised if Zach Wilson targets Cam Son. So it'd be probably opportunistic to have Minka Fitzpatrick over Cam. But I think this is going to be a good game, yo. I think this is going to be a good game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is a get-right game, get them back on track. I know there's a lot of, negativity about the schedule that is upcoming, but, it's very early in the year. There are many teams that come off hot early and stumble and are really, really poor down the line. And there are teams that come out, really stumbling and then end up being a competitor. It's very early. It's still within the first quarter of the season. There's the first 4 games. The next game after this is against the Buffalo Bills, who are, not to look ahead, but, they got a lot of injuries on the defensive side. And Mr. Trubisky played for the Buffalo Bills last year. He may know what it is that their philosophy, that the identity of the Bills defense, what they want to do better than anybody else on our team, that's for sure. And so, or maybe Levi Wallace, he was a member of their defense last year. And so, with that being said, I think that, he can be competitive and make that game a competitive one. Don't count him out yet, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that they're going to win that game, but they got an opportunity. Brady looks old. Tua, that was a scary injury. Prayers to that guy. I hope he's okay. I hope he ends up, coming out of it okay. I just don't think that he should be playing anytime soon. I know the Steelers don't play the Miami Dolphins for a while, and when they do, if he's there, I don't know if he's going to be the same guy. I mean, this is 2 neck, back, head injuries, whatever you want to call it, back-to-back successions within 5 days. That's scary, man. I wouldn't put him out there for a while. And, Teddy Bridgewater, we saw him last year when he was with the Denver Broncos. I was in stadium for that game. It doesn't scare me. I think the Steelers defense can handle him fairly well. I think those are games that are potentially winnable. The Eagles is going to be a tough game for sure. I think that one's going to be a difficult game. And so is the Buffalo Bills, regardless of the experience that Mr. Trubisky has with their team, regardless of any of those things, the injuries. It's going to be a tough team. They're still very talented, and they got a quarterback out there that reminds me of a young Ben Roethlisberger. And so it's one of those things where I think, the Steelers are going to be okay. If the Steelers can win this game, they'll be 2-2, back up to 500. And I think that the Steelers will be, ready to continue to make another push. After the bye, the schedule gets significantly easier. I put that in quotations because this is still NFL talent. This is still an NFL teams that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going up against. And so, yeah, let's see. A couple more questions, guys, before I let y'all go. Let's see. Ryan Brown goes, do you think the Steelers defense is lacking in the run department, or are they just tired? They played really well in the first half. I think that had to do with tiredness. You go back to the Cincinnati Bengals game. They played over 100 snaps, and then the following week they get the ball run down their throat in the second half against the Patriots to turn around on a short week to go on the road against the Cleveland Browns team with an offensive line that's pretty talented and a runner that is a very strong runner. Nick Chubb, he's a beast, man. You got to give him credit. And so, yeah, I think that the physicality, all that stuff went down tremendously in the second half due to fatigue and tiredness. I think that, there's also some players that weren't doing so well. And I think the Steelers made some adjustments by putting Martavius Adams in the front as the nose tackle. That doesn't alleviate all the issues, but I think that Devin Bush played a lot better. He's been playing so much better since the regular season has started. Preseason, there was a lot of concerns about him. His heart, his will to play the game, so to speak, was in question because he didn't want to put his face mask into the pile, so to speak. But, he's come out and he's made some tackles. He's done some good things. He's stopped some running backs. I like what I'm seeing out of the defensive front. Now that they've put Martavius Adams in there, I think he did fantastic last season stopping the run, and so I think that the Steelers can make a big difference. I can't wait for this game to start tomorrow. Really can't wait. Let's see. DFMP925 says, the sad reality is we are having a discussion how the Steelers might beat the Jets. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I get it. This shouldn't be a team that the Steelers are going into where we're like, they could win, they might win. This should be a game that, in the past would be a game that we chalk up as a win when Ben Roethlisberger was a quarterback. But because of what the Pittsburgh Steelers have shown up until this point, I get it. I'm not thrilled about the offense either. I'm not thrilled about the decision to go with Mitch Trubisky. I know that, and I said this earlier, this was the Steelers' decision. They want him there for the entire year. That's not mine. I thought they should have started him from the get-go. I thought that him being 24 years old, as old as he is, the experience he has in college in a pro-style offense, and an offense that is similar to what Matt Canada runs or wants to run in Pittsburgh. When you look at, Pickett was recruited by Matt Canada to Pittsburgh. Now, Matt Canada never coached him. However, in interviews with Kenny Pickett, he mentioned that a lot of the Matt Canada playbook stayed in Pitt. The RPOs, the moving him around, things of that nature. And so, in my opinion, he was the most experienced quarterback coming into this season in an RPO offense, in an offense that is moving around, in an offense that is the Matt Canada, what it's supposed to be, the motions, the whole 9 yards. I'm not saying that he was in the Matt Canada offense, but a Matt Canada style offense. And so I thought he had the most experience in that. I thought that he was the most comfortable in preseason. I felt that he made decisions down the field more decisively and correctly. And when he did, he was able to deliver the ball, with accuracy. There was only a few times that they played him. And if you go back to the second game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where they only played him 2 drives, I think that was done on purpose. And the reason being was to protect Mitch Trubisky, not to protect Kenny Pickett or anything like that. In my opinion, he went out there, Kenny Pickett did, and outperformed Mitch Trubisky, who had almost 2 full quarters, and Kenny Pickett outperformed him in a couple of quarters and a couple of drives. If Kenny Pickett would have come back out in the third quarter and participated in the majority of that third quarter, going up against a second string, defense, he would have definitely outshined Mitch Trubisky. And at that point, the crowd, the noise, the media would be 10 times louder than what it is now. And so, in my opinion, I think they kind of did that to protect him. But I would have liked to have seen him. I was very disappointed when they did that. I wanted him to play in that third quarter, and I wanted to see him play against the ones, maybe even start in the third preseason game, because I thought he deserved it. He played well enough. He showed that he could handle this offense. At the end of the day, it wasn't even if he was better than Mitch Trubisky or if Mitch Trubisky is slightly better now. It's kind of like when I brought it up, way long time ago in the offseason, I said, hey, you know what? This is going to be a marathon. You have, this is when Mason Rudolph was being spoken about as being the best quarterback in training camp. And I was like, I'm not surprised by that. He's been in the offense. He knows the team better. He knows the receivers better. He's worked with them for years when it comes to Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And he's got a familiarity with Pat Freiermuth and whatnot. And so, I told everybody, I was like, this is more like a marathon. And some people are going to start closer up to the front than other folks because of what they've done in the past or whatever the case may be. But if they're not a strong runner, they're going to get passed up eventually. And if the runners behind them are strong enough, they'll pass them up. It may not be at mile 1, it may not be at mile 5, but by mile 10, halfway through, they're going to get passed up. And I felt that by the time the regular season started, that Kenny Pickett had made enough gain and surpassed Mason Rudolph and made enough gain on Mitch Trubisky that it was pretty undeniable that he was going to surpass him fairly soon if given the opportunity to get out there and gain some experience. I felt that the first 4 games of the season were going to be probably the best opportunity to give him that experience. He had the Bengals coming in who didn't play much throughout preseason, especially their quarterback as well, who's coming off of an appendectomy. You had the offensive line that was from the Cincinnati Bengals that was also coming together, but had some injury issues. And so I felt that the Steelers defense was going to take charge and control of that game. You know, the New England Patriots, they ran the ball in the second half because of the time of possession that the offense couldn't maintain. And so those are games that are winnable. So was the Deshaun Watson-less Cleveland Browns. Jacoby Brissett isn't a world beater. You know, those were games, the New York Jets that were playing today or tomorrow. Those were games, in my opinion, that could have, you know, gotten Kenny Pickett set up for this daunting next portion of the schedule. And I felt a long time ago that they should have started him. But Mike Tomlin made this decision, and it's very hard now to pull Mitch unless he completely, you know, drops the ball out. And he hasn't shown that, you know, he really hasn't. He's protected the ball for the most part. And he hasn't been the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers lose. It's just frustrating to see because, in my opinion, I think Kenny Pickett could do better. That's just my opinion. Let's see. Brian Brown. Good show, Daniel. Steelers family. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The only answer they made a start agreement with Mitch before the Pickett draft. You know, I've heard that, and I really do think that that's a possibility. When you look at Mitch Trubisky's contract, I believe he has a 6-game deal there where he gets an incentive as long as he started 6 games of the year. And I think that might be what it is, because he came in with a very low contract for a starting quarterback in the NFL. And there was some incentives there that changed it from like 14 to 27 million, something like that. And so one of the first incentives was that he starts 6 games. So I wouldn't be surprised that, you know, during the contract making of this situation, they told him, hey, you know, we're going to give you this deal. We're going to give you this many games as long as you don't get injured or any of those things. We're going to give you the opportunity to show what you can for 6 games. And that might be what it is, you know, and I'm not, you know, when you look at it, and I've heard, you know, folks that are former NFL players like Arthur Moats, for instance, and he's brought it up on his podcast, Arthur Moats and the Deke Experience, where it goes the other way, where there's incentives that a player is getting close to reach and the team bench him so that they don't have to pay him. Well, if they're willing to do that, I'm pretty sure they're willing to make some under the table deals with players to say, hey, you know, if you come with us and accept this deal here, we're going to guarantee you X amount of time on the field, you know, barring injury, of course. So that's quite possible. I don't put it past this team, especially when you look at the contract. And I mean, I don't put it past an NFL team doing that when you look at the contract that Mr. Trubisky has. So, yeah, and if that's the point, then, you know, we're going to see Mitch Trubisky play until week 6, which is the game that I'm going to be at against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so I would really like to see Kenny Pickett start by then so I can wear my Kenny Pickett jersey while I'm out there. But I digress. Whoa, man, we're already hitting the 45-minute mark. So that being said, guys, I'm going to let you guys go here pretty soon. My score prediction for this game is 27 Pittsburgh Steelers to 13 of the New York Jets. I think that the Steelers are going to take control of this game. I think that the defense and Minka Fitzpatrick, they're going to get some turnovers and give a short field for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think the Steelers are going to capitalize. I think this is the week the Steelers offense gets it together and stops making those little mistakes that are killing the drives. I think they become more efficient this week. And I think this is the week where they start to make a little bit of a push and make a little bit of noise, so to speak. If not, Kenny Pickett's coming in pretty soon, in my opinion. If the Steelers drop this game and go down to 1-3, I know they're going to give him the Bills game next week because it's a tough game on the road. But I don't know if he finishes that game. Let's just say that. I think that he gets benched in that game. If this game goes poorly and it starts to go poor next week, I think that might be the line. But who knows? There's been a lot of rumors going out there that I've heard that if Mr. Trubisky struggles this week, we might see Kenny Pickett in the end in the second half of this game. We'll see. Tune in to find out, so to speak. Tonight at 8 p.m. Pittsburgh time, me, Mark Davison from Steelers Nation Australia, and Nathan Hines from Inside Side will be doing a show we call the Unofficial Steelers Podcast. It's a merry-go-round podcast that goes around our channels. Tonight it's on Mark Davison's channel. Devin Engel from the Here We Go show will be a special guest. You don't want to miss it. So catch me there tomorrow. We'll be watching the game. Afterwards, I'll have the post-game show. I tend to do mine a little bit later just because I know some folks want to watch the second game. So my post-game show usually airs between the end of the second games and before the Sunday night football game. So please hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss that, and ring that notification bell so you're notified of all of my lives and daily segments, and that also so you can get entered into the challenge or the contest, to win 2 Steelers tickets against the Vegas Raiders this December 24th. Being a subscriber is the first step. Description or whatever you want to call it is in the description, how you enter and all that other stuff. But with that being said, real quick, Brian Brown goes, Wheels on the Bus podcast. Yeah, that's basically what it is. And we go round and round. And so you don't want to miss it. So catch me there tomorrow after the game around 7 p.m. or so, 6:30-ish. I'll be going live talking about the post game. That being said, guys, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers. Peace.